On a bright afternoon, a young boy was just looking to enjoy a perfect day, flying his kite high above the ground. In search of the best view, he climbed to the top of the nearby Vintum Hill, where adventure awaited. But when his kite got tangled in a tree, he rushed over, only to stumble upon a shocking discovery. Two lifeless bodies, hidden among the vegetation, both wearing formal suits and lead masks covering their eyes. What he thought would be a day of fun turned into a chilling encounter, igniting one of Brazil's strangest and longest unsolved mysteries, as the nature of these bodies would puzzle investigators for years and years to come. Let's take a step back. 2 days earlier, another young boy was on Vintum Hill, setting small traps for animals, when he came across the same two men still lying in the grass. Unsure if they were asleep or dead, he quickly left and knocked on the door of a nearby policeman, describing what he'd seen. However, the officer didn't seem too concerned, barely paying attention to the kid. Maybe he thought it was just the kid's imagination or had other matters to attend to. Either way, he chose not to investigate, sending the boy off and leaving the bodies undisturbed. When Kite Boy found the bodies, he returned back to town and called the police station to report what he'd seen. But with daylight fading and the storm on the horizon, the authorities decided to delay the investigation until the next day. The following morning, a mix of police officers, firefighters, reporters, and curious townspeople made their way up Vintum Hill. Word of the mysterious discovery had spread fast, no more than a day, and despite worsening weather, they reached the top after a grueling 2-hour trip. They arrived at a small clearing, roughly 107 square feet, where the two bodies lay. The scene was unsettling. Both men wore matching formal suits, covered by waterproof coats, and each had a lead mask placed over their eyes. Personal documents in their pockets made identifying them easy. Miguel Jose Viana and Manuel Pereira da Cruz. Their bodies lay on their backs, resting on a spread of pendobo leaves, a type of palm leaf that would normally have required a knife to cut, yet no blade was found anywhere nearby. As investigators combed the scene, they discovered an assortment of unusual items scattered around the bodies. Among them was a nearly empty bottle of mineral water, with the receipt still attached, along with 2 small cups fashioned from aluminum foil. A package with 2 towels lay nearby, and inside Miguel's jacket pocket, they found a wedding ring tied to a pair of reading glasses, along with matches and cigarettes. Miguel's pant pocket held a wristwatch, while a plastic bag tucked away held a large sum of cash, roughly 157,000 cruceros. They also uncovered a folded, unused handkerchief embroidered with the initials AMS. But the strangest items were the 2 masks, made of pure lead and cruelly shaped like sunglasses but without eye holes. And lastly, scattered notes, all handwritten. Among them, one stood out for its cryptic instructions, quote, 1630, be at specified place, 1830, and just capsules after the effect. Protect metals, wait for signal mask. Another note seemed to be written in some sort of code, made up of letters and numbers in a strange sequence. And finally, a third note contained what looked like electronic equations, possibly relating to the men's professions as they are both technicians. These items make this case a lot stranger. Some items make sense while others don't. The weird nature of this piqued investigators, and so the investigation was now in full swing. The bodies were taken to the coroner's office. However, the office was busier than usual that day, as an important detective's body was also there. And with the coroner absent that day, the assistant, going against standard protocol, began preparations for Miguel and Manuel's autopsies. Initial reports indicated no visible signs of violence or injury on either body. On August 24th, on the day of Miguel and Manuel's burial, a reporter visited the coroner's office seeking answers. What he uncovered was alarming. The organs of the 2 men had been carelessly discarded without proper testing. They had been left on a shelf for days, decomposing beyond recognition. As a result, crucial tests for toxins, tests that might have identified what were in the capsules the men were believed to have ingested, were never conducted. The official cause of death is still, to this day, unknown. Despite the chaotic circumstances, investigators managed to piece together a timeline of events leading up to Miguel and Manuel's deaths. Both of them were very respected in the community of Campos dos Goitacazes, where they ran a small TV repair shop. On May 12, nearly 3 months before their deaths, Miguel, Manuel, and their friend Elcio Gomez participated in a weird experiment on Atafona Beach, a popular tourist destination nearby. Around 9 p.m., a massive explosion lit up the night sky, producing a fireball that was heard up to 6 miles away, even causing some damages to nearby homes. The explosion was caused by the three of them conducting the experiment. A month later, a homemade artifact exploded in Manuel's garden. On August 16th, 2 months later, Manuel told his wife that he and Miguel were planning a trip to São Paulo to buy a used car and some electronic parts for their shop. He packed a significant sum of money, around 2.3 million Brazilian cruzeiros, or roughly 1,045 American dollars. A friend drove them to the bus station, but instead of traveling to São Paulo as planned, their destination was Niterói, another city within the state of Rio de Janeiro. At 2 p.m., when they arrived, Miguel and Manuel visited an electronics store and spoke with the owner. They asked about some Philips components, but the store didn't have any in stock. 45 minutes later, Miguel and Manuel stopped by a plastic and rubber store. There, they purchased 2 raincoats. Although it was raining outside and they appeared to be in a hurry, neither man put on the raincoat. Another 30 minutes later, they made one last stop at a bar near Vincem Hill. There, they bought a bottle of mineral water. The waitress later described Miguel as very nervous, as he frequently checked his watch. Despite being in a hurry, they specifically asked for a receipt. With the bottle in hand, they left the bar and made their way towards a road that led directly to the base of Vincem Hill. No one knows exactly what time they arrived at Vincem Hill or their time of death, but we can assume that they got there at around 4:30 p.m. due to the letter stating to be at that specific place at that time, and their deaths after 6:30 p.m. when they would have ingested the capsules. This is all very strange. In the span of about 1 hour, Miguel and Manuel visited 3 unrelated stores, each stop seemingly random. If they anticipated their own deaths, why ask for a receipt for the mineral water? What do the codes mean in the letters found with them, or the random initials on the handkerchief? And what was the true purpose of those lead masks? Well, the code is simple. According to Elcio, he asked them to bring valves and gave them their codes, that being EY88, ECL82, and 12AU7. These are all codes for electronic valves. The initials found on the handkerchief, AMS, haven't been identified. Neither family or friends had those initials. Moving on to bigger questions. To this day, no one has definitive answers, but several theories have surfaced over the years, with the most prominent being spiritualism. According to one of their employees, Elcio was deeply involved in spiritualism. Together, they held long spiritual sessions and frequently conducted experiments, like the Atafona Beach explosion and the strange incident in Manuel's garden. With this theory, the Vincem Hill deaths might have been an accident. I say this because the evidence indicates that the guys weren't planning to die. They had a return receipt for the mineral water, and they also spent time purchasing raincoats, despite being in a hurry. You wouldn't care about getting wet if you weren't going to be around for much longer. But whatever they anticipated on Vincem Hill, it did not go that way. Yet, one detail still doesn't sit right with me. Why were their bodies positioned so perfectly? As I mentioned earlier, Miguel and Manuel were found lying flat on their backs on a spread of palm leaves. If they truly ingested a capsule that turned out to be fatal, you'd expect some signs of struggle, signs that they try to move, sit up, or do something, anything to fight the effects. But there was none of that. They remained as if frozen, in the same position they had originally taken. Did the capsules kill them instantly, or was there someone else there? I think we'd be grasping at straws. They could have been set up, I guess, or scammed. They brought over 2 million cruzeiros with them, and were only found with 161,000. Robbery would have been a good motive, or maybe they were robbed afterwards, by one of the kids or someone anonymous. Well, in 1969, a woman came forward claiming to know who was responsible for their deaths. The police took her into custody while they searched for the suspect, but the lead quickly fizzled out and the story led nowhere. A month later, in February, a convicted criminal claimed to have known who it was, but his story was full of inconsistencies, and after questioning, the police concluded that he had lied in a desperate attempt to leave prison and escape custody. He was sent back to prison and charged with false testimony. So, that theory goes out the window for now. Of course, you have the UFO theories. Brazil being known for many UFO sightings only seemed to fuel this theory. Well, at the guy's shop, police found a book named Life on Planet Mars, filled with tons of notes describing the culture of Martian civilization. And on that same day as the incident, 30 minutes after they would have ingested the capsules, a local woman named Garcinda Barbosa reported seeing something extraordinary. Around 7 p.m., Garcinda and her 3 children were driving near the area when they noticed strange lights in the sky. They stopped the car and got out, observing a bright oval object, emitting blue rays in several directions. She returned home and told her husband, who went to investigate but saw nothing. The family initially kept quiet, but when the story of the lead mask broke the news, they reported the sighting to the police. And in September 1968, a photographer managed to capture something else unusual. A photo of a UFO hovering over Ventum Hill. The object hung motionless in the air for several minutes before speeding away. The photographer said the object emitted such an intense silver light that he had to use a yellow filter on his camera. And then, in 1980, an ex-NASA employee and UFO enthusiast decided to investigate the site himself. He climbed to the spot on Ventum Hill where Miguel Emanuel's bodies had been found, only to discover that the area was still marked. No grass had grown in that spot for 12 years, believing aliens were involved. I myself don't believe in UFOs, but I would be more convinced if Garcinda had reported the UFO before the lead mask case hit the news. It would have been much more believable. People tend to shape a narrative according to their experiences. In reality, the time of the UFO sighting could have been before 7 or 6:30 p.m. The location could have been different and not directly above Ventum Hill. Maybe the location of the bodies was just a little less dense than the surrounding area. Without direct proof, this theory, or really any theory, doesn't stick with me. It really is a strange case that will most likely never be solved. If only the autopsy wasn't such a failure, perhaps we would have had some answers. And Elcio, I find it hard to believe he didn't have an idea as to what happened. As their spiritual influence, he must have known those 2 were planning to climb the hill. Whether or not he knew they were going to die, I can't see for sure. This mystery is one of the most bizarre I've seen. Whether Miguel and Manuel were chasing a spiritual vision, tricked into climbing the hill by thieves, or simply caught in an otherworldly encounter, their story leaves us wondering how much of it we can ever really understand. Sometimes, the truth isn't just out there, it's lost to history.